Today's little mini teach is all about shoulders, and this will not only help us with our side plank work, but also with push-ups in general. And I know that these are a bit of a stumbling block for so many of you, so I thought let's break it down. I have a tea towel here, and this is to help stabilize. So sometimes you'll find when you've got the mat underneath you that you're kind of slipping around a little bit. So this is to help with that. That's why I've got the tea towel here. Any towel will do. So we're going to start on your hands and knees, and we're going to start with a bit of mobility for those wrists. So just from side to side here on the mat, you know all of these, and then just gently circling around with those hands. And do remember, if you have issues around the wrists, you might find it more comfortable to have your hands on the floor rather than on your spongy mat, or to have a thinner mat for this. Then with your hands underneath your chest, so placement is key here. You want your middle fingers parallel with the edge of your mat, and it's like you're gripping the mat with all of your fingers, not just with the heels of your hands. So you don't want to be rolling out or in. That's where a lot of the issues around the wrists come. So feel centered on the heels of your hands. Then we start with a squeeze. We squeeze the shoulders together and we pull the shoulders apart. But more than that, I want you to feel you push into the mat to lift up. So we round the shoulders by pushing away from the mat, not just by squeezing the shoulders together. So that's your first level, and you're going to be progressing. And when you're doing this as homework, start here, and then as we move into the next exercises, you want to start to feel that each time you do them, and you want to do them a couple of times a week, you're going to start to add one each time. So if you want to progress with this twice a week with this little program, and add one on each time, write it down and write the next number that you've got, because I promise it will make all the difference. So we're now from here, we are going to come from your knees. We're going to hover those knees off the floor, squeeze the shoulders together and push away from the mat. So this is your next level. We're in, we open, we in, we open. Now we're aiming for 8 or 10. If you can only do 2 or 3 with good form, do 2 or 3 with good form, and then for the remainder of the set, drop down onto the knees and finish them here. Because what you want to feel is you're still working those muscles, even though the harder level, you just need to drop down. Good form is key on these. Now here's another progression from that. You could come from your knees here. There's lots of space between your ears and your shoulders, and now we're going to squeeze the shoulders together and push away from the floor. Now the reason I didn't start with this one is because sometimes finding this position for starters is a challenge. So I would encourage you to start from that hovered position rather than from here, from your knees. It's a little bit easier. You might find that more manageable though. I wanted to give you those 2 options. Then we progress from there to being up on your toes. So for some of you, this might be your start point. We squeeze and we push. We squeeze and we push. We squeeze and we push. And again, just like the other one, start with however many you can do with good form, and then maybe you've done 4 here, and then drop down to the knees and complete your set there. So again, you are aiming for 8 or 10 with good form. As I said, just change that on your plan every time you do it. So that is our first exercise. So we've done our mobility, and that is our first exercise, just getting the shoulders moving, and that will then progress us onto our planks. So the second exercise in the set will just literally be your plank position. So again, your progressions, we can be here, the knees hovering off the floor. We can be here, onto the fronts of the feet. We can be here, those feet coming up and away from the floor. We push through those hands. We can be here, the foot coming off the floor, the foot coming off the floor. If you find you're moving around when you're doing that, you could do this with bare feet, or you could do it literally on a towel on your carpet rather than on your mat, something that's going to keep you more stable. So you want to work into your plank. So mobility first. Shoulder protraction, retraction second. This third exercise, your plank. And we're just aiming now for how long can you hold this with good form. pushing away from the floor. You're going to start with 5 seconds, you build to 6, you build to 10, and then once you've got to 10 seconds, then you start to add those layers. So that's your mobility, shoulder protraction, retraction, plank work. Let's take a little stretch here because I'm very conscious. So this particular sequence is not very balanced. You're seeing that, aren't you? You know it's all one thing, and we wouldn't just do this in a class. We would move around and we would do this as a section in your program. But I'm specifically focusing on shoulders right now. So then to take that from there up into your push-ups, we would be from your hands and toes. And then we're going to lower all the way down to the floor and push back up to the top. Back up onto your toes, lower all the way down to the floor and push back up to the top. Now, this is some of the things that happen with this one. I'm going to show you the first one. The first one is this. You start to lower down and then the thighs come down first. So, some ways around this, you can put a mat underneath your thighs, something physically in the way, so that as you come down, those thighs have to come down last and come on up. Here's another thing that happens quite commonly. You're on your toes, you lower down, oof, and it's an actual oof. You run out of energy at the bottom. Don't mind too much about that one, because that's what we're working into. So we're here, toes, all the way down with as much control as you can, and roll back up to the top. So that is your first level where you're lowering down. So you're lowering down to the floor with control, and then you roll yourself back up to the top. And then from there, you would take this to slowly lowering down, hold, hover, slowly come back up to the top, hold. And that coming up, that pushing up away from the floor is much harder. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to start with the lowering down and the rolling back up and do 8, progressing to 10. Once you can do 10 and you've done that for 2, maybe 3 sessions comfortably, then start to have a go at that first full push-up coming down to the floor and all the way back up. And that is it. That is your little bit of a push-up homework. So mobility, you have your shoulder protraction, retraction, you have your plank work, and you finally have those push-ups up at the end. Oh, one little bonus exercise is that you can do your side planks here as well, because actually they're quite nice for giving you that balance and for working into the sides of your body. Have a go and let me know how you get on.